Hi, I'm Becky Anderson, and welcome to Authors Revealed. We have a wonderful picture book and artist. It's Kelly Light with her brand new debut book, Louise Loves Art. Well, Kelly, welcome to Anderson's in Naperville.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
It is so great to have you. I want to tell you, when I saw this picture book and sort of the folded and gathered sheets that we see before books are actually bound and everything, I was blown away by this. This book has such a great feel, and it reminds me so many of those books I loved as a child and when I read to my own children. So I just want to tell you congratulations. This is going to be one of those picture books that will be along for a really long time.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
Oh, it's an easy thing to say. So how does it feel? Because the book's only been out in the world for literally just a few days, right? I mean, it's from official date, right?
It came out 2 days ago, and actually came out on my birthday. It was my birthday 2 days ago.
Well, happy birthday.
Oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's a great birthday present.
It's a great present, yeah.
So how does it feel? I mean, having that baby out in the world, because this is your first picture book that you've done.
This is the first one that and it feels great. It feels amazing, especially when you see kids with the book. That's the most amazing feeling. Somebody sent me a picture before I came out here of kids in a classroom with the book. Oh, cool. And that made me cry. It was great.
Yeah, I bet. So where did the inspiration come for Louise Loves Arts? Tell us where the little seed came before you started to put this into a picture book.
So I was a little girl. I've been drawing. I've always wanted to be an artist since I was 4 years old. And I also have a daughter, Maggie, who also is a girl who draws. And when she was probably about 9 years old, I really noticed that she's got the bug. She really wants to be an artist. And she wasn't getting a lot of visual arts in school. And it was frustrating for her, frustrating enough that she came home and talked to me about it. Yeah. And that's when I started to think about, wow, what if who I was as a kid was going to school today? So I started to draw a little girl who wanted so much to share, her creativity with the world. Yeah.
And it so is, and I love it. Louise loves art because there's kind of a two-way meaning with this, because her little brother, who just worships her, is always hanging out with him, and he's always drawing her eyeglasses on some of the art that she's doing. So, and her little brother's name is Art. So she loves art in two different ways, in a way. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually the younger sibling.
You were? Okay, so I wonder where that came from.
Yes, I have an older brother. Okay. And so I was the one who used to get into all of his stuff and mess it up. So I flipped that, and I gave Louise, the younger sibling, who gets into her artwork.
That's good. Yeah. So, the whole thing with art, it kind of reminded me a little about Harold and the Purple Crayon. He's there drawing on things and everything. I thought that was so great. So, when that feeling, and then sort of expressed in this, and it is for Louise in this book, that there's a need that she just has to draw. She has to express herself. Like she says in the book that, drawing for her is like putting your imagination on the outside. Did you feel like that when you were very young?
I did. I know that there was no scrap of paper in my house that was safe from my pencil. I doodled on everything, including the napkins in the napkin holder, and then I'd put them back in so that when my family it was dinner time, they'd pull out and they'd go, oh, she did it again. Another drawing, another drawing. So to me, drawing's like breathing.
Yeah. And you still feel that way today, obviously.
Absolutely.
So this book probably brought a lot of that joy back, expressing this.
It did. And again, being in a classroom like today and having the kids yell out, oh, I love to draw, I love to draw. It's like, it's lovely to, know there's so many kindred spirits out there.
Right. Well, and I think when you're doing school events like that, we always hear wonderful stories that by your appearance and talking to kids, there are 1 or 2 kids that were inspired by you, and it makes a real difference. So that's really powerful, So the book is so full of joy, but I always wonder with something like this, especially when someone like you are the author and the illustrator, what comes first? That chicken and the egg thing. So what comes first, the storyline or the illustrations?
For me, it starts with character. So she came first.
Okay.
The character, who she was, what she was about, and I think in pictures. So the book actually was drawn in hundreds of drawings that had to be edited down. And the only line that I had written was that first line, I love art, it's my imagination on the outside. Other than that, it was like a silent movie. And I would do running dialogue up and down my studio. I'd walk up and down. And then I was like, okay, when I finally thought the pictures were right, then I decided to actually commit the words to paper.
Yeah, and I loved it so much because there's a lot of white space, and it's. Do you use pen or pencil, or what do you use when you?
I usually draw with a black Prismacolor pencil.
Okay.
And then
okay.
those drawings are scanned into the computer, and then the color is added on the computer.
Because I love the way the red, it just pops off the page, and it makes it so joyous that way. So, but what I want to know, and I know you've done a lot of comic work before, and you worked on some animation and different things like that. And so many illustrators, when you talk to, especially those who they want to be known as comic artists or cartoonists, or some people just want to be known as illustrators. So, professionally, what do you like to be called?
I think I identify as a cartoonist.
Okay.
Or a cartoon illustrator.
Okay.
When I was a kid, all I dreamt about was being a cartoonist, and I didn't differentiate between comic books, animated cartoons. I just thought I could just do it all. So and illustration fell into that. It was another part of it.
Yeah. So you're okay if we call you a children's book illustrator?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually majored in illustration. In school.
Okay, because it's interesting when you talk to some people who they really prefer, because there's a couple guys I know, and one in particular, name shall not be named here, but his dream is to get whatever he can into the New Yorker. Mm-hmm. So to be called a children's illustrator, he'd rather be called a cartoon artist. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. People really prefer different names, what they're called for the profession. Yeah. So this book, when you can read it again and again and again, and you won't mind when you sit down with a child. This is one of those books where I think it entertains us and gives us the joy as much as the child we're reading with. So are there books like that you read to, even to your own daughter, you felt had that magic? Because I think you so captured it in this picture book.
Yeah, so some of my favorite picture books to read with my daughter one of them was Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus.
Okay.
And I would read it one way, and my husband would read it another way. And I think it's one of those picture books that the parent can become like a rock star reading that.
No kidding. No kidding.
So that was one of the ones that she liked a lot. Yeah. But when I was a kid, one of my favorite book, I still have it, it's all tattered, was What Do People Do All Day by Richard Scarry.
Oh yeah.
So and that is a million little pictures, and then there's Lily Worm, on every page. And so that was passed on to her. So that was another one of our favorite books.
Well, Richard Scarry, he's timeless, So
It's timeless, absolutely.
Right. So you mentioned about that you're drawing with the pencil, but then putting it digitally, and it's so interesting to talk to different illustrators or cartoonists or whatever we want to use the word. But using digitalization of illustration has changed so much, and has changed the art. And sometimes you can't even tell. But how do you feel about that? What you learned in college and as an illustrator and that sort of thing. So how has the whole world changed when it comes to digital images and that?
Well, I think if you use it properly, it just becomes another tool in your art bin, your art toolbox. I think there's still nothing like when you're actually working on paper, whether it's watercolor, whether it's pencil, whether it's pastel. There's nothing like it. It's like a zen feeling when you're actually moving something on paper. And the computer does feel different.
Right.
One of the books I'm going to be illustrating coming up, I'm going completely traditional, because I just want to move away.
Yeah,
I want to move away, and I want to have that zen feeling where when you make a mark, you can't undo it. There's no Control Z. So there's something to that. Like lots of happy accidents happen when you're working traditionally, and the computer has its place, and it definitely has so many different applications. I think if you have a really good education in your traditional media, that the computer just falls in line with all of those other things.
Right. So it's kind of neat to switch around the mediums and the tools that you use every time you do a different project. So I was wondering, for your daughter, and how you have in the book the Galley du Fridge, all the great art that we all put. Do you have one of those at home that you did when your daughter was young, or even doing it now?
Yes. So we have a huge chalkboard in our kitchen that is also magnetized, and then we have these clips, and the whole wall in our kitchen is the place where we hang up anything that she draws, or she'll hang up things that I draw that I don't think are very good, but she thinks are great. She'll stick them up there like, look, Mom, this is actually good. So and she actually has her own studio just this year. She was always in my studio and shared it, and just this year We finished the basement and created her own studio, and that's covered with artwork.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
You must be so proud of her,
Yes,
following in your
yes.
footsteps with
Yeah.
this. So, in the book you talk about and how Louise loves line, in the aspect. What is your most important aspect when you sit down to illustrate or draw a cartoon or whatever? What is the most important aspect of design and also in the art itself?
Well, line is, I mean, that when I say you have to notice every line, every curve.
Right.
My favorite style of art is usually art that is line-based, and I can really wax poetic about when you pull a curve and how the weight and the line changes, the pressure that you put on a brush or a pencil. And I do think that's tied back to cartooning and animation.
Right.
So I really do. I have great respect for people who get looser and looser with their line, like Jules Feiffer. I would say by the time I'm his age, I want to draw just like he does. Yeah. He dips the wrong end of a brush into ink, and he goes blah, 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 and something beautiful comes out.
That's so true.
Yeah.
So storytelling, and that old saying that a picture tells 1,000 words, and I've you've seen people like Brian Selznick who writes a whole novel, and the vast majority are in images, But how do you feel about the storytelling that comes from pictures, and how important are the words? And is it hard because everybody thinks, oh, picture books, there's nothing to writing that, but there is such a secret and a real key to making a picture book just right.
I think the hardest things to do, anything in life, are the simplest things to do because they have to be pure.
Right.
And when you're using so few words, they have to be the right words, and it is very difficult. Yeah. And again, I would not commit those few words to paper until I knew I was ready. And I had rambling, long narratives and dialogue, and I didn't put a word down until I was like, no, what is the picture saying to me that I can use as few words as possible to actually, add to that picture what isn't there. The picture is telling you some of it, but yeah, maybe a little bit more emotion can come through in whatever it,
Right.
whatever the word is. There's one page where Art just says sorry.
I know, that's
and it's the gesture of his body and the one word.
But that's perfect. It needs to say no more.
Right.
Yeah, right. So you worked in, and this was interesting, cartoon merchandising, and then for a little bit in animation. So what did those two careers, how did they help you in what you're doing now? Because you've illustrated some other middle grade novels, a couple of series, and now having this first picture book and where you're moving to. So what did those two things teach you about what you're doing now?
Both of those worlds are production worlds. Okay. So animation, you're a production person. So you're expected to produce a certain amount of work in a very short amount of time. And the same thing in cartoon merchandising. Someone would walk into my office and say, I need 24 concepts by 6 p.m. and if you're not done, order a pizza, you'll stay here all night. So, and I would have to fill a whole wall with drawing. So that kind of intense environment, it's kind of like being an advertising agency, where you have to always be on your toes and you always have to be thinking. And that has helped a lot, just with idea generation. Someone can say something to me like, the chapter book series that I illustrate is The Quirks. And the one line was, the girls have hair like curly parsley. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I can generate like 1 million character sketches based on that.
Right. So I love the trailer. I watched the trailer for the picture book, and you don't see many trailers. There are book trailers, and of course we all know about the movie trailers that have been around forever.
Right.
But to see a trailer for a picture book, I thought was it fun? Did you create the animation for that?
Yes, I animated along with an animator, Joanna Davidovich, who's younger than I am, because when I worked in animation, it was film. And that is no more.
Right,
so I couldn't make that trailer happen without the help of someone who knew how to do it today. So, but it was amazing to do that again, because I hadn't done it since I was 25 years old. So to be able to make Louise and Art and the cat move was fabulous.
So I'm guessing you're probably going to do that with every picture book you create from now on. I think that would be wonderful.
I'm hoping to, and I really caught the bug again to do that by making the trailer.
What's your earliest recollection, the one that's really conscious of you thinking, I want to be a cartoonist or something to do with illustration? Do you remember that moment?
I do remember the moment. It's something that I tell kids. I was 4.5. And I had a Sunday ritual of going to the movies with my grandmother. And she took me to see Cinderella. And I wasn't caught up in the princess thing or the romance. That was the realization that I had those characters are not actors or an actress. You know, those are drawings. And I remember going home from that movie and being like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to draw drawings, you know, draw drawings that move.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, what do you hope that kids and even parents and educators reading this book with children will take away from Louise Loves Art?
Well, I do hope that she is a little bit of a muse, and that when people see, when kids read about her, the parents read the book to their children, that it's that little spark that unleashes, you know, the creativity within the kid, or unleashes inside the parent that, oh, let's draw together. It was one of my favorite things to do with my daughters. We spread out newsprint on the floor, and she was 18 months old, and I got those really fat crayons, and we'd sit for hours on the floor scribbling on newsprint. And it's a wonderful thing to encourage in your kids, whether or not they pursue it. It's just a wonderful thing to feel free to express whatever is inside of you.
Yeah, and to do it at home, because you know, you think of many school districts where they're cutting some of the art programs and stuff. So it's really important that we do it at home.
Yeah,
Right. So you thought about, because your style and what you do, it would be so perfect for graphic novels. Because your characters are so expressive and everything they do. Have you thought about doing some graphic novels? Because graphic novels for all ages have really taken off, especially for younger kids.
Yeah, and there are some wonderful graphic novels out for kids.
So you have to do this.
Oh, I would love to. I have an idea for one, and my daughter says, you need to do that. I'm like, okay. But they're also huge undertakings. But I would love to.
Yeah, that would be so fantastic. So tell us what's coming up next. I hope we see more of Louise.
Louise is now a series.
Oh, cool.
So there will be more Louise books. There'll be one next fall, the second Louise book, and then one after that, the next fall. And there's also going to be readers. So we're going to see Louise and the readers actually be in art class in school. And that way there'll be lots of other kids, and lots of other kids are going to be creating. And it's also my hope not only to put a spotlight on creativity and art, but also art in schools and art teachers, because I think art teachers are very forgotten. You know, we think about so much about teachers have a really hard job and a tough time, and then there's the art teacher, and I would be nowhere without my art teachers. So that's what's coming up. A whole lot of more Louise stuff.
Great, and I hope you put maybe some art activities, because the beginning readers will be fantastic.
I do. I want to start doing Draw with Louise activities.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, that sounds great. Can't wait to see that. So I end these interviews with a little quiz. No pressure.
Okay.
You know all the answers, so it's kind of a lightning round. So whatever occurs to you first. So, what was your favorite book when you were very young? Say that picture book. I know you mentioned one, but any other ones?
Another one? I had a book called Mr. Pine's Purple House. I don't know if it was a very old reader, and I had trouble learning to read, and it was my favorite. Okay.
Do you remember something maybe in high school? Maybe something even this is all book related, so anything maybe that you had to read but has still stayed with you? Or maybe something you worked on in art classes?
Well, it wasn't quite high school, but I will tell you, I mean, one of my favorite books, I probably read it more when I was 11, but from the Mix-Up Files. That book, I really, to be able to sleep at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and, you know, like,
cool.
It was a dream.
That's a perfect choice.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember what your favorite, okay, how about in college? Do you remember something that any pieces of works of art that really were the ones that still are your favorites, maybe today?
We're talking art, not books, right?
Well, either one, a book or art,
well, being in college, you get exposed to lots of, you know, different kinds of art, and I remember being blown away by photography, you know, in college, being so focused on drawing. I'm trying to think. I can't think right now of the name of the photographer, but I'm trying to think.
That's okay. That's okay.
Move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay. Favorite Saturday morning cartoon when you were a kid?
Oh gosh. I mean, anything Hanna-Barbera back then.
Right.
I mean, it was the 70s, so anything from Jabberjaw and Dune Buggy and the Super Friends.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Who's your favorite illustrator today? Somebody.
Contemporary illustrator.
Yeah, contemporary. Somebody.
Well, I have a soft spot for Molly Idol.
She's great.
Yeah. Yeah. She's also my friend, but if I never met her, I would adore her work.
Her stuff, and she's so great too.
Yeah.
She's so much fun. Okay, how about a comic book artist? Somebody that you've really enjoyed their comics.
Well, we were talking about graphic novels.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My daughter and I are huge fans of Raina Telgemeier,
Oh,
and I saw earlier Sisters. I'm picking that up.
Well, you have to pick a book tonight. So
Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, how about a book just for your own reading pleasure that you've been an evangelist for that everyone had to read?
I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I'm constantly, drawing. So I've read a bunch of memoirs I've listened to a bunch of memoirs this past year, but I really thoroughly lost myself in The Book Thief last year.
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And like a couple biographies. I listened to a biography of Groucho Marx that I thoroughly enjoyed. It was called Groucho and Me. Okay. I like learning about people and Mel Brooks. There's another one of the biography of Mel Brooks.
Okay. If you could have a dinner with 3 people, okay, they can be artists or authors.
Okay.
Alive or dead. Who are those 3 people?
Dead. Chuck Jones is my number one choice. So authors and artists. So I would say I would like to meet Dr. Seuss.
Okay. Very good.
And I would love to meet an illustrator whose name was Jessie Wilcox Smith.
Yeah.
Back at the turn of the century,
Yeah.
she was as big as Maxwell Parrish, Norman Rockwell, N.C. Wyeth, she was a woman in a man's world, and she was fascinating.
And her books are still around. People
Yes,
still
and her
purchase.
art is gorgeous.
They're gorgeous. They're
Yeah.
gorgeous. And what are you reading now? Anything you're enjoying right now?
I am reading David Sedaris's book, Let's Talk Diabetes with Alice.
Yeah.
Yes, I bought that for the tour, so I just started it, and
Good
he's
one.
wonderful.
Yeah, he is fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, 100%. Good score. Okay.
Okay.
Well, Kelly, thanks so much for coming and talking with me, and thank you for Louise. We absolutely love her. So come back next time.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Fantastic conversation with Kelly Light on her debut picture book. She's author and illustrator. You've got to get it. Louise Loves Art.